The rain was falling hard that evening in downtown Chicago. The restaurant was warm, its windows glowing with golden light against the cold, wet street outside. Inside, people talked in low tones, forks clinking softly against plates. Nobody expected the night to turn dangerous, nobody except the man sitting quietly in the corner with his teenage daughter. That man was Daniel Hayes. Daniel didn't look like much. His brown jacket was worn, his hands calloused from construction jobs, and his tired eyes told the story of late nights and endless responsibility. He was a single dad, raising his 14-year-old daughter Emma after his wife had passed away 3 years ago. Life wasn't easy, but he kept moving forward, for her. Tonight, he had saved for weeks to bring Emma out for dinner. Just one nice night, away from bills and worries, where she could feel like any other kid her age. But fate had different plans. At another table, a man in a dark suit was laughing softly with 2 colleagues. He was well dressed, confident, the kind of person who looked like he had everything under control. His name was Richard Blake, CEO of one of the fastest growing tech companies in the country. He was wealthy, powerful, admired. But at that moment, he was just another customer enjoying a meal, until the front doors burst open. 3 men stormed in, their faces half covered, their movements sharp and deliberate. The chatter in the restaurant froze into silence. One of the men pointed toward Richard's table. "There he is," the tallest one barked. Before anyone could react, the attackers rushed forward. Chairs toppled, people screamed, waiters ducked for cover. Richard tried to stand, but the men surrounded him like wolves, shoving him back against the wall. The entire restaurant sat frozen in fear. No one moved. No one wanted to get involved. Except Daniel. Emma grabbed his arm, whispering, "Dad, don't, please, don't." But Daniel's eyes were fixed on the scene. His past, the part of him he had buried deep, the part his daughter didn't know, was waking up. Years ago, before construction jobs and fatherhood, before losing his wife, Daniel had been something else. A Marine, trained, skilled, a protector. He hadn't used those skills in years. But some instincts never die. Daniel stood, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The attackers turned, surprised that anyone dared to move. "Leave him alone," Daniel said, his voice calm, steady. One of the men sneered. "Sit down, old man. This isn't your business." But Daniel didn't sit. He stepped forward, his body loose but ready. His daughter's hand slipped from his arm, fear flashing in her eyes. The first attacker lunged at him. The room seemed to hold its breath. Daniel moved faster than anyone expected. With one swift motion, he sidestepped, grabbed the man's wrist, and twisted it until the weapon clattered onto the floor. Gasps filled the air. The second man swung wildly. Daniel ducked, countered with a strike to the stomach, then used the attacker's own momentum to send him crashing into a table. Plates shattered, people screamed, but Daniel never lost focus. The tallest man, the leader, glared at him. "You think you're a hero. You're nothing." He pulled out a knife, waving it toward Daniel. But Daniel's expression didn't change. "You don't want to do this," he said quietly. The man lunged. In one smooth motion, Daniel shifted, caught the attacker's arm, and used a move so precise, so practiced, that within seconds the knife was out of the man's hand and he was face down on the floor, pinned. Silence fell. The entire restaurant was staring at a single dad who had just taken down 3 armed men. Richard, shaken but unharmed, stood to his feet. He looked at Daniel with disbelief. You saved my life." Daniel released the attacker and stepped back, breathing hard but steady. He didn't feel like a hero. He just felt like a father, making sure no one, especially not his daughter, would have to live in fear that night. Police sirens wailed outside. Within minutes, officers stormed in and took the attackers into custody. The restaurant slowly came back to life, voices rising again, people whispering about what they had just witnessed. Emma clutched her dad's arm. Her eyes were wide, not with fear anymore, but with something else, pride. For the first time, she realized her father wasn't just the man who worked long hours and came home tired. He was something more. Richard approached them. His expensive suit was rumpled, his composure shaken, but his gratitude was unmistakable. "I don't even know your name," he said. "Daniel Hayes," he replied. "Well, Daniel, Richard said slowly, I owe you everything. You didn't just step in, you risked your life for a stranger. Daniel shook his head, I just did what anyone would do. But Richard knew better. Not everyone would have stood up. Not everyone had the courage, or the skill. The police finished taking statements, and slowly the restaurant emptied. As Daniel and Emma put on their coats to leave, Richard caught up with them again. Daniel, he said, his voice softer now, I don't usually say things like this, but, if you ever need anything, anything at all, call me. Men like you, people who still do the right thing when no one else will, are rare. Don't forget that. Daniel gave a small nod, uncomfortable with the attention. He just wanted to take his daughter home. But Emma's smile lingered all night. For her, the world had changed. She'd always thought of her dad as tired, ordinary, just scraping by. But now, she saw the truth. He was strong, brave, someone who could stand against the worst and still protect others. And deep down, Daniel realized something too. He might have lost his wife. He might have struggled through sleepless nights and endless bills. But he hadn't lost himself. The strength, the courage, the protector inside him, it was still there. Hidden, maybe, but real. That night in the restaurant had proved it. And though he didn't know what the future would bring, he knew one thing for certain. His daughter would never look at him the same way again. Because sometimes, in the most unexpected places, in the middle of an ordinary night, a single act of courage can change everything.